All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. Today is February 12th, recording this one directly after a big away Champions League victory for Bayern Munich in Glasgow at Celtic Park. And yeah, 2-1 was the final score. Great goals from Kane and Olise. And then Bayern kind of fell apart after some substitutions were made. But overall, yeah, happy with a win heading back to the Allianz for leg two next week. So we'll talk about all that. We'll kind of maybe preview the Leverkusen match. And then if you have any Chelsea things to bring up, we'll hit on it all. And also, this is a video episode. Again, another reminder. So subscribe there on the YouTube channel. We just hit 100 subscribers, so we'll be doing that giveaway or 5 minutes on the air or sending over the Bayern Munich cards to the 100 subscriber. But don't stop subscribing now because we'll have plenty of more of those coming up. Just got to figure out how to message over on YouTube over there.
Yeah, very exciting day getting that 100th subscriber. So really can still only go up from here. So good things ahead and lots more great football to be played as always. So definitely give us a follow, subscribe, like, whatever, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, X, um, all the mediums.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of mentioned that just a minute ago. Bayern now has a packed schedule of Leverkusen over the weekend before the return leg at the Allianz against Celtic. And Chelsea, of course, has a big match here coming up on Friday against Brighton again. So tons to talk about.
Some high quality Champions League football today. Was at home, big storm here in Milwaukee. So was able to watch the entire match and what a fun match. I mean, truly one of the most fun Bayern matches honestly I've seen in a minute here. So was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was super open, I thought, and credit to Celtic for that. They did not sit back and park the bus like so many teams that play Bayern do. They were pretty aggressive for yeah, almost the entire match. Got a goal in the end of the second half to show for it. But overall, I thought a well played match from them and a well played match from Bayern for most of it. I'm looking directly out my window right now at all the snow and thinking about how right after recording this, I'm going to be out there shoveling. So, yeah, Snowmageddon here in Milwaukee. Before we get ahead of ourselves here, let's just talk about the match because, yeah, I said it was open and I said Celtic played aggressive and they. Actually scored within 30 seconds of the match kicking off, but lo and behold, that goal was disallowed because the Celtic player was offside and kind of blocking Neuer's view. I don't think the ball actually hit him at all. I think it was just clean through, and the offside call came because he was in front of Neuer.
Yeah, exactly what happened there. Electric start for Celtic. I mean, and we're going to talk about this multiple times. I'm sure the announcers were insane on the entire day in this match. If you're watching on Paramount Plus in the United States, and they were going nuts. I mean, you could hardly tell what was going on because they were just totally out of it. And I think you could see that they had called offside, but the announcers didn't realize it for another 10 seconds at least. And yeah, it was just one of those unfortunate plays for Celtic where the guy happens to be in front of Neuer, which, I get why that's a rule. You see it more often on corners when there's so many bodies in the box, and then a guy might be in front of the keeper. I believe they have a similar rule in hockey if you're a fan of that sport, but unfortunate because would have been just insane to start within 30 seconds with a goal.
Yeah, and I mean it was probably a deserved goal too. Again, that's the rule, so it is what it is. It's not a goal by the rules. You have to play by the rules. But again, I mean, it was a nice start for Celtic. And yeah, like you said, the announcers' voices were cracking throughout the match. They were screaming at the top of their lungs. Any time that Celtic really got the ball in their half, it was seemingly pandemonium in the announcing booth because plenty of shots that were not even remotely close to goal or easily blocked by Bayern Munich. The announcers are screaming like they're 1,000 mile per hour bullets heading in towards the goal. But so yeah, kind of weird. And another thing to mention here too that was considerably probably more annoying to me than it should have been was for whatever reason, one of the announcers continuously throughout the match pronounced Olise as Olisa. So I guess for today it wasn't Michael Olise. Instead it was Michael Olisa.
Yeah, absolutely diabolical by that guy. I mean, your main job as a play-by-play man before a match is looking up the pronunciation of players that you don't know how to say. Not to mention, Michael Olise is one of the more well-known guys in the world. I mean, has been called up to the French national squad at this point, plays for arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world. So for him to not know it, I can only assume it's because from what it sounded like, it's an American commentator and just doesn't understand the sport.
Yeah, I could give him a pass if it looked like it was to be pronounced that way or if you had ever heard it before, but I had never heard that pronunciation in my life. And it's almost like he was just, making it up or it seems a little bit disrespectful or weird. I don't know. But not gonna get hung up on that because Michael Olise did have an incredible goal, one of the best goals of the season later on in the match. We'll talk about that more when we get there, but um I should mention the starting lineup, for Bayern Munich. Relatively standard. There were a few curious omissions. I'm wondering if Kompany is saving guys for Leverkusen over the weekend or potentially even the return leg at the Allianz. But um, yeah, we saw Manuel Neuer as the goalkeeper there, and I thought that Neuer had a really nice game. The goal wasn't really his fault, I didn't think. Maybe he could have been a little bit quicker, but had a couple of key saves at the end too. Right back, we saw Conrad Leimer. Thought he did a nice job as well. Upa and Dyer were the center backs in this one, with Kim Min Jae getting a rest with his Achilles tendonitis issues that have been flaring up. I have no complaints about the center backs really. Rafa Guerrero at the left back position again continues to be a bit of a defensive liability. As I've been saying, I don't understand why Stanisic isn't getting more run there. I get his preferred position as right back, but he's played left back, for Bayern Munich before, so he should be getting a look there. The midfield pivot was Kimmich and Goretzka. I don't mind that as a start if you're resting Pavlovic, but I would have liked to see Pavlovic get some minutes in there, and he didn't. And then, yeah, the attack was right wing Michael Olise, and Jamal Musiala at the 10, Leroy Sané at the left wing, and Harry Kane at the 9.
So essentially, your ideal front four with Sane on that left wing that we've discussed many times on this podcast.
Yeah, it was. And I think this match is a good indicator of how far and away, well, I would say how far and away Olise is above the other three wingers. And then in my mind, it's a clear Leroy Sané at number two, and then Coman and Gnabry three and four. As again, things fell apart when they came in. Not their fault necessarily. I think there's bigger problems here because we've seen Bayern collapse as substitutions are made. It seems like they just throw the game plan away for whatever reason, multiple matches this year. But yeah, we've mentioned it. I actually still would like to see a 4-3-3 or some iteration of Musiala maybe bumping out left a little bit. And if you want to do a 4-2-3-1, maybe play Muller more in the 10, but or yeah, with the 4-3-3, it would just be Musiala, Kane, Olise. I'd like to see that, but again, I'm not mad about those attackers, and I thought that Sane looked good overall today. He missed a pretty easy chance, as he has been kind of known to do lately, but overall, I just thought the attack was so much better when it was those four.
Yeah, the attack certainly looked great at times, and I think those four are kind of your best in form guys for the most part. I mean, the form that Elise is in right now is just tops in the world, to be honest. And of course, Kane's always going to be a strong attacker, and Musiala, although maybe didn't have the greatest day, you're always going to want him in your lineup, and he's always going to pose a threat no matter what.
Agreed 100%. And I still remain of the mind that Musiala to me hasn't looked the same in 2025 as he did 2024, beginning of this year. I'm not going to say it was that illness, but since returning from that illness and even a little bit before then, he just hasn't looked like himself to me. He certainly hasn't been clinical and lethal in terms of scoring goals and providing assists like he has been. Obviously, he still dribbles well and does other things well, and I'm not worried about the guy. I think he's going to get back to that level. Um, but yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Olise has been on, Kane has been on. Um, and there were a lot of chances in the beginning of the game for Bayern. Really, that first half, I thought they were dominant outside of maybe the first 5 minutes after that Celtic goal that got disallowed, and then a little bit of pandemonium after that with the crowd, absolutely going nuts, the announcers going nuts. Um, but after that kind of calmed down, I thought Bayern actually controlled the match nicely, and um, their attack was just so fluid. I mean, we listed out as the 4-2-3-1 and these guys with these certain positions, but in reality, you could see Kane anywhere left to right on the pitch. You could see Olise and Sane and Musiala, all of them really interchanging. And then you get Kimmich and Goretzka up there, and it's almost an unrecognizable formation at times, which I think now that I'm saying this out loud, has actually hurt Bayern in some matches because there's just been so much going on in the box with low blocks and whatnot. But in terms of this match, because it was more open and because Celtic was kind of a little bit more aggressive, I think that the fluidity of the attack actually worked nicely for Bayern.
Yeah, they were definitely controlling that first half. I mean, Celtic didn't have a shot in that first half. Seeing that the opening 30 seconds didn't end up counting. And that's what made it funny to me is Bayern were really controlling the game, yet the announcers, anytime, as we've said, Celtic got the ball basically on Bayern's half, is like you thought they were about to have this amazing shot, but they didn't even have a shot in the first half. So that was kind of just crazy. But yeah, Bayern in that first half was surprising that they maybe didn't add another goal. I think it was that first half. I think Kane had that header, right?
Yep, Kane had a header and Zane also had kind of like an open shot that he was running in for, but he ended up kind of whiffing it. So two huge chances right there in that first half.
Yeah, and that Kane chance off a corner where he's essentially unmarked will come back later in the second half to the setup for that. But yeah, again, chances you got to put away when you get them, especially in the Champions League. We've seen this. We've talked about it with Bayern over the last few weeks now. Still a little bit of a lingering problem.
Yeah, and better teams are just going to punish you. That's really the reality of it. Better teams, I mean, we saw it. Villa struck on a counter. Barca struck on about four counters. I don't even want to think what a team like Liverpool could do to this back line in this current iteration. I think that as people get healthy, we might be able to see a stronger situation back there for Bayern. But if Bayern plays like this, like you said, if they don't put away their chances, and they're so susceptible to counters, they won't have a chance against the top teams in the world. Now, I think we're going to get past Celtic. I've thought that for a while. Hopefully, those words, I mean, as soon as the draw came out, I was happy we got Celtic and not Man City. Hopefully, those words don't come back to bite me, but I'm not so certain that Bayern could get past, like I said, a Barcelona, a Liverpool, but even maybe this next round would be Leverkusen or Atletico Madrid if we get past Celtic here. So either one of those matches, I'm not like super sure about for Bayern Munich. But yeah, the first half closed off with really a worldly goal, one of the best goals of the season, I thought, by Michael Olise. And not to be forgotten about is what set up that goal, which was a bombing ball from Upamecano across pretty much half the length of the pitch, finding Olise. Olise gets past the defender. Really a textbook Michael Olise play and goal where he cuts in, gets past the defender, has a little bit of space, and just rips off a fiery shot, upper right corner, bending in, keeper had no chance, 1-0 Bayern.
Yeah, and you could kind of see that goal coming for Olise. He had multiple moments in the first half where he was trying to cut in, some that he'd get a little bit of space. I think he might have had a shot that it got blocked. I know he had at least one cross with the right foot that kind of got blocked in the first half, but a shame for Upamecano he doesn't get an assist. Olise kind of hit it off the defender on his way in, but as pure a strike as you'll see with the left foot of Michael Olise, one of the best left feet in the world, if you will.
I will.
And yeah, just an unreal goal.
An unreal goal, yeah. And, Bayern came out of the halftime break strong. That goal was actually the very last action of the half, and then it went right into halftime. And like I said, Bayern came out bursting at the seams. I mean, they were hungry, and that's what I need from Bayern Munich. Just because you're away at Celtic, I can't have you become complacent with a one goal lead. And right after half, it looked like they weren't. No changes at halftime, and they came out strong, chances right away. And then lo and behold, 49th minute, Kimmich whips in a corner, and Harry Kane unmarked. Um, Bad defending by Celtic. I'll just throw that out there to start this off. But you know, Kane with a weak foot volley out of the air places it in the back of the net nicely. So yes, unmarked and bad defense, but also a really nice finish from Kane. And I actually saw after the match here, Kimmich said that at halftime, Kane went up to him and said, "Hey, they're not really marking me on corners, so bend one back to me, far post, and I'll be there for a goal." And that's literally exactly what happened 4 minutes into the second half.
Yeah, really nice finish from Kane on his weak foot. I mean, yes, he's wide open and right next to the goal, so you have to score that. I mean, the XG alone on that one, I'm sure was pretty high, but again, poor defense, just putrid really by Celtic there. I mean, I don't know what you're thinking. It was weird when you kind of saw the replay. It seemed like they barely had any defenders in the box. So I don't know how you're not marking Kane. That's your first guy you'd look at between Kane and maybe some defenders that are in there, Upamecano or Dyer if they're up for the corner, your taller players. So the fact that you're not marking maybe the best striker in the world is just crazy. And I'm not sure if that's an individual mistake, one guy that was supposed to be marking him and doesn't, or a team mistake. Either way, it's just something you hate to see as a Celtic fan.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Kane is the last person in the world you want to leave in front of an open net, with a ball coming right towards him. So good for Kane to put that away. And even right after that, Bayern kept the pressure on. They kept attacking. Kane actually missed a header a little bit after that. They went into the side netting that I'm sure he would have liked back. There were a couple good chances from various players. Kimmich had one that I'm thinking of that got saved. But yeah, Bayern didn't score again after that. And then in the 65th minute, Coman and Gnabry came on for Olise and Zane. So on one hand, I get that I'm sure he needs to rest some of these guys. I mean, I'm the number one guy promoting rotation for Vincent Kompany in these crazy weeks where they have three matches in 7, 8 days here. Um, but I will say I thought it was a little early for those subs. I don't think that the game was necessarily um, locked down. Maybe I was a little scarred from the Kiel collapse where they allowed like 3 goals in the last however many minutes against the bottom table team in the Bundesliga. So maybe I was a little scarred from that, but I just thought it was a little bit too early. I would have liked to see Olise and Sane run out there till maybe the 75th minute or so. Um, and I'm not blaming this on Coman and Gnabry. I thought they did okay. I guess they didn't really have any huge individual mistakes that necessarily led to the collapse, but for whatever reason, the whole team kind of after that point just fell apart. The game plan fell apart, and it looked like, Celtic started to control possession. They started to build, and it looked like something was coming.
Yeah, and maybe there can be discussion at a later date about whether this is a mentality issue as we see how Bayern does in the coming weeks here. But in terms of the subs themselves, if I had to guess, this is coming down to it being a two-legged match. And you got Leverkusen this weekend, which we know is a massive match, massive match in the Bundesliga. You win that, you almost clinch the league. So I'm thinking that Company sees this as okay, I'm up 2-0 in the aggregate on the road. And next week we're coming back to the Allianz Arena where you're surely going to put some goals away and easily win. That would be my guess. I'm not sure what he said post game when they asked him if he did answer questions along those lines, but that would be my initial thinking.
Yeah, I mean that's my thinking too. Again, it's also why I don't think he played Pavlovic at all or Stanisic, Bue, guys like that. But yeah, curiously enough, in the 78th minute, we saw Hiroki Ito come back. First match all year, he played for Bayern. I didn't think he was going to get any minutes. I actually didn't think Gnabry was going to get any minutes because Gnabry has been sick for a long time. Um, so again, it's kind of a weird. I'm hearkening back in my brain to that Pokal match where Pavlovic came back against Leverkusen way too early, in my opinion. I'm not saying it was too early for Gnabry or Ito to come back, but it just seemed like a little bit of a weird time for me to see those guys return after not playing in Ito's case all season. And again, Ito came in for Guerrero, and I think it was okay. I don't think he made any horrible mistakes himself that really put the match in jeopardy. Um, and say you get past him next week and you do fine against Leverkusen, then we'll all be saying, "Oh, great moves by Company, giving these guys some much needed rest." So hard to talk about right now, but just I was surprised to see.
Yeah, again, with the Ito sub, I think it's a case of this guy's back and healthy. We need to get him some minutes, and we don't want to delay the inevitable and just have him on the bench time after time. So you're up 2-0. It's fairly no pressure. Yes, it's a Champions League match, a raucous crowd, no doubt. But again, 12 minutes left in the match. Is much really going to happen? We'll throw him in because maybe we don't want to play him against Leverkusen. And then, maybe not next week at home against Celtic. I don't know. That's my brain. I'm not Company. But could be his reasoning there.
Yeah, well, your brain compared to companies, I mean, I don't know if head size is the exact correlation in brain size there, but I got to give him the benefit of the doubt in that case.
I was gonna say something, but I thought I better not. That's kind of mean. And the fact that you said it,
Yeah, well, I mean, I can punch up a little bit. I think Vincent Kompany, I think he's a level above me, some guy just talking into a camera and a microphone here, coaching one of the top clubs in the world. So I feel okay punching up. Yeah, nonetheless, a minute later, after that Ito sub, Celtic scores. Yeah, 79th minute, um, off of a corner, and just not really good defending by Bayern. I think that. The goal was deserved just because overall, like I said, I thought that Celtic were building and it seemed like a goal was coming.
yeah, that last portion of the game, final third, Celtic were certainly pushing. I mean, I wasn't even super dialed into the match, but just listening to the commentators, I could tell that they were really pushing, and it seemed like something was coming. You could hear the crowd getting kind of anxious and expecting things to happen. And that particular goal, agree that it was deserved, and I wouldn't even say it was poor defending. I mean, you kind of have this corner, and then it volleys around just a little bit, ends up basically getting, I think, headed down to a player who then kicks it. And a couple guys on Bayern, I think, were then thinking that maybe he was offside, but then from there, his kick of it goes into the box directly in front of the goal, and the guy heads it in. Ends up actually being Harry Kane, who is the last defender keeping him on side. And it was kind of interesting because Kane was so far over where he had been man marking some other guy. If you kind of look at the replay, and he had basically given up on the play and his hand was up. I don't know if he thought once again that somebody else had been offside prior. I'm not saying it's his fault for not getting back to like a better position would have been tough from where he was. But yeah, it ends up being a goal. And then at that point, anything could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, the goal itself, it was what it was, kind of a chaotic moment off of a corner. But I just mean that I felt like Bayern was like losing possession and was making bad back passes, and Neuer had to make a couple of really good saves at the end there. So it was just nervy. And like I said, I wasn't quite sure why they went from just dominating completely. And you're not going to dominate possession for an entire match. A team gets more desperate at the end and they add in more attackers and whatnot. So I'm not expecting Bayern to dominate possession like they were in the first half for a full 90 minutes. But I mean, what happened was they literally looked like they didn't know what to do. Like they were running around trying to find somebody to pass it to, turning the ball over, and yeah, it was really bad for a moment of time there. Again, and I'm not gonna keep uh harkening back to this, but maybe just one more time. I don't understand why Stanisic wasn't there. He's a guy, or even a Polina, these are guys who can kind of shore up things on the defensive end a little bit, um, as opposed to, again, a Hiroki Ito who hasn't played a single minute all year. So we'll see what happens after next week, and maybe he's saving these guys and he'll play them more in other matches. So at this point might be useless, but again, just something I was thinking. 86th minute, Thomas Muller comes on, Jamal Musiala comes off. I agree with that sub. I think save Musiala a little bit here. But again, this is a sub in the 86th minute versus subs happening in the 65th minute. So, yeah, Muller did a good job, I thought, with what he could in the end of it, just kind of shoring things up. Towards the very end, Bayern looked a little bit more secure, but there was just a large chunk of time in the end, in the second half where they didn't. Um, and yeah, then the only other thing I had written down was 90th minute, an incredible save from Neuer, a bullet going above his head, and he has to quickly react, put his hands up, check it out on video. I'm looking just like Neuer, and save a hard shot coming in above his head.
Ended up being the last good chance for Celtic. Bayern basically shut things down after that chance. Really was a nicely worked play by Celtic where they get the ball kind of far on that right side, cut it back, and then the guy's pretty open there and would have been a tough spot to finish that and slot it in. And as you said, Neuer makes a great save. So kind of ended the match there for Bayern. And I will just add on your point about Stanisic, you know, I do kind of agree. At times, you need just guys that you know are going to lock things down at the end of matches. Muller coming in there for the last 4 minutes plus seven extra. I always value veteran experience in those moments. I think from what you've said about him, Stanisic feels like a guy that knows what to do in a lot of situations, but you just maybe never know what's going on in training, and Kompany seems to just prefer certain guys. I don't know if that's maybe why he doesn't prefer Stanisic. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it must come down to that performance principle in training there. But again, we'll see. I like Stanisic. Whenever he's played this year, he's been so defensively sound. And hey, he even scored a number of goals for Leverkusen last year in those extra time clutch minutes. I really value somebody's ability to be clutch, basically. So maybe I'm even overrating him a little bit. But hey, he scored against Bayern last year, so. Maybe he'll score against Leverkusen this year if he gets some minutes. We'll see. But yeah, match awards for me, I think there were four players that were clearly above the rest. So throw these four in any order you want, I guess. But I had Olise as the man of the match, Kane as the Robin, Kimmich as the underrated fireball, and Upamecano as the defender of the match. Huge shout out to Upamecano. He actually got the UEFA Man of the Match award, and I thought he was just a beast back there. I don't think Dyer did bad. Um, Upamecano was more the leader, but there were a number of key moments that Dyer had chasing somebody down with his immaculate foot speed, right, Company? Um, and or just making key blocks. So good match from Dyer, I thought, but a great match from Upamecano, especially with that ball to Olise to set up the goal. And then yeah, I thought like Goretzka and Zane did pretty well too.
Yeah, I'll shout out the defenders as well, the center backs. I thought Dyer and Upamecano, particularly in the first half, were really strong in being able to maintain possession and erase any counterattack that Celtic had, and credit to Goretzka and Kimmich as well for that. And even Sane a little bit at times. Like I saw him, he would win the ball back suddenly. So kind of the midfield ish attackers being able to win ball back in that first half was key. And Olise, definitely the man of the match. I mean, moment of the match is that strike, just purely from the perspective of how strong of a rocket it was.
100%. That was a brilliant strike. If there's one thing you want to take away from this match, it's go ahead and watch that. But yeah, also agree with you about Zane. He did a great job tracking back and actually won the ball back in some key moments. I mean, he's really playing for a contract right now. It's uncertain if Bayern wants to give him a contract, but by all reports, Zane wants to take a huge pay cut. I mean, the numbers that I'm looking at are it's reported that he's willing to take like 10 million, which is a massive pay cut, especially for a player of his caliber. So I'm doing that deal if I'm Bayern. He's not my favorite player in the world in terms of output. I think Bayern needs to sign another left winger in particular, but if he's willing to, be on the bench a little bit and take a pay cut like that, I'm doing it. Um, so yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts on this match. I think now we just head into the weekend. If Bayern beats Leverkusen on Saturday, man, 11-point lead would be really, they would need to have a catastrophic collapse to blow that. I think not impossible with some of the devil magic I've seen Leverkusen working with, but um, it's going to be a big match regardless.
Yeah, going to be an awesome match. 11:30 a.m. Central Time over here. So, going to be geared up and ready to go to watch that one. And we'll see. I mean, as you said, Bayern can essentially clinch the league if they win. If they were to lose, not the end of the world, but maybe it shakes you a little bit in your confidence heading into some more important Champions League matches as well. But both teams are certainly going to be hungry.
Yeah, especially with a potential matchup in the round of 16 against Leverkusen in the Champions League. A lot has to happen. Bayern has to close things up in this return leg at the Allianz Arena next week against Celtic. And then, however the draw works, they would have to get Leverkusen over Atletico Madrid. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this Leverkusen match. I mentioned my desire to see Musiala out wide on the left side or some sort of a 4-3-3. Don't think it's going to happen. I could see, Pavlovic returning to the midfield. I could see Boué playing right back, maybe Stanisic in there, maybe Stanisic at left back. There's a few changes I could see happening. Maybe Min Jae Kim returning to the center back position, but overall, I think it's going to be a similar lineup to what we saw today.
Just have to start Eric Dyer.
Hey, he played a good match, and he's been solid every match he's played. Um, so that I think about wraps things up on my end. Is there anything you want to mention in terms of Chelsea or in terms of, football in general?
Yeah, a massive news day for Chelsea as always. I mean, I could say that every single day as a Chelsea fan, but we head into this repeat match away at Amex Stadium in the lovely southern coast town of Brighton on Friday, Valentine's Day over here in America. I feel like that's just an American holiday, but could be wrong on that. Nonetheless, it is a massive match for Chelsea. And the news that I'm referencing is that Nico Jackson will be out until at least early April. Sounds like April 2nd against Spurs is the soonest he could return. Sounds like a hamstring injury. Not what any of us were expecting. We also know Mark Guiu's out for an extended period of time, at least a few weeks, could be months as well for him. Chelsea right now technically do not have a true number nine. Fofana had gotten recalled, but I think he's also injured for the season. And then, there's talk like, do you call up Shim Mahuka, who's like technically a U18, U21 player? He's like 17. and then David Washington, who I thought we had loaned back to a Brazilian squad, but either way, there's really no good option. And instead of taking this as negative news, I will use it as an opportunity to say that I'm so excited to see what Maresca will do in changing his tactics to find out how to be a top four team in the Premier League without a striker.
That's what I was gonna say is you gotta change your tactics. I mean, you have talent, and Kunku, I don't want to say he's a nobody, although it seems like a lot of Chelsea fans think that. Um, he will have to step up, really, is all I can say. He'll have to step up and prove himself in the absence of guys like Jackson and Guiu. Hamstring injuries are really no fun, as Alphonso Davies knows. But if you have a hamstring injury, I'll just say I think you really got to be careful coming back because those are the type of injuries that can just reoccur and kind of plague a player for longer into their career. So get well soon, Nico. Get well soon, Guiu.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. Real quick, I did see somebody threw out, Palmer and Kunku and even Neto, in terms of a false nine striker option. And I don't hate the Palmer Neto route in terms of how then you're going to set up your press. And Kunku has shown he's not the guy for that. So I would be interested in something along those lines. And maybe in Kunku then can be in his 10. And then if Palmer's up top or on the wing, if Neto's up top, whatever, some intriguing options there. So we're not down for the count quite yet.
Yeah, definitely not helpless. Palmer as a false nine could be interesting, or just a more fluid attack, a more rotational, fluid kind of situation up there, would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all I got. I'm kind of descending into darkness. It looks like on my screen here, with the waning light. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Yeah, me as well.
All right, well, I will get out there and start shoveling. Mia san Mia.
Up the Chelsea.